Hey. This is just a little quickie I've been thinking about and wanted to make for my people. I work with a lot of professionals who are self employed, own their own small businesses, and so they're responsible for marketing their work. And in 20 years of coaching, visibility is a big thing for a lot of people. There's both a desire to get stuff out there for the work, and then there is, for a lot of people, a concern of receiving criticism and feedback. Yeah, but I'm doing it live. Um, and many of my clients have ADHD. And if you have ADHD, you might also have RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. And so the mental load it takes to prepare to be visible and the mental load it takes when you do receive feedback that isn't your favorite. So I just wanted to share a couple of resources because I'm actually a pretty visible person. There's a lot of things I like about being visible and being seen, and then there's also a lot of things that kind of trigger some parts of me. And definitely over the last few years, like people have just gotten mean, right? Like not constructive criticism or just a random disagreement, but like people are mean. And when they come for you, canceling, they come for you. And so there's parts of me and times that I see something going on in the world and it really does it shrinks these parts of me. So I wanted to share a resource that really helped me gain perspective. The first thing I started out my own resource. I was like, in my mind, I have this thing I do with my clients. It's called to make a plan for the zombie apocalypse. And so I always, and I don't know, maybe this comes back from my corporate days, like where you would do a SWOT analysis and, you look at your strengths and your weaknesses and your obstacles or opportunities, but obstacles, right? And so I'm not going to bypass potential obstacles. I think that's smart business to pay attention to what obstacles might be on the horizon for your business. And this day and age, if you're marketing publicly on social media, it is potentially an obstacle that somebody will be disappointed, frustrated, and that disappointment and frustration and criticism could catch on. I know, terrifying. Parts of me are terrified for sure. So the first thing I do is like I don't know what my plan is yet, but I see some people that are really good at there's some people that are so good at staying really calm and detached and they just give it back in a really intelligent way. That is so sexy to me. I think I have a pretty big internal reaction for first. There are other people who just block and delete. But I've been watching this. Well, I'll tell you about that resource in a second. So number one is begin to consider worst case scenario. What is going to be your standard operating procedure for dealing? And I'm not talking about like respectable disagreeing comments. I'm talking about hate. Right? Father Nathan Monk is one of my favorite people. I love watching him. He has taught me so much. On the back of his book, even, hey, Robert, hey, Teresa, on the back of his book, he has 1-star reviews. And I think it's hilarious because his 1-star reviews actually tell you who the book is for. Right. And then I watch him. He creates a lot of content on social media and people just come to give him a damn hard time. And every single time he does, I'm not saying he doesn't feel it because I get the sense that he really does feel it, but he gives himself this strategy that I'm going to tell you about in a second. Well, the strategy is have an internal response and then an external reaction. Or I'm sorry, an internal reaction and external response, right? And so I actually learned that I'm kind of going backwards. I learned that from Molly McPherson's book. I learned the language of that from Molly McPherson. She's a PR person. It says reclaim control and respond with confidence in immediate crisis. Molly McPherson, she's a PR person that I follow on TikTok. Tick. How old am I? TikTok. And so at some point I picked up her book and she has a handful of strategies in here and she does have a basic, like, keep this on hand. I think it's a worthwhile. It's an easy read. I read it on a Sunday morning, afternoon, super easy read, but these were my big takeaways and I'm actually doing it backwards. So give yourself, this is what Father Nathan Monk does. I imagine he gives himself an internal response, like if it hurts or stings or whatever. But that internal response is his and his people and his trusted advisors, both professionally and personally, right? Like his internal stuff. And then he gives himself, I'm making this up. I get that he's a sensitive soul. So I'm making some assumptions here, but he gives himself an external response, and his external response has a strategy behind it. And every time someone is a butthole to him on social media needlessly, he uses it to sell more books. And I think it's brilliant. So I love this concept of part of your plan, just knowing ahead of time, I'm allowed to have my private internal reaction. And remember, a reaction is automatic. A reaction, like, of course it's going to sting. And I think it is so funny when there are certain people out there that say, oh, don't take it personally. Dude, when you create and share from your heart, we cognitively know not to take it personally, but it still stings. Okay? We're human. And especially if you have ADHD or any kind of neurotypicalness, you may be sensitive. Other people might not be. Good for you. That's not me. Right? So I'm working on it. I've gotten a lot better. I have soothed the parts of me that need everybody to love me, but I still get taken off, especially if something really mean and hateful comes from out of left blue, whatever that is. My politics is what that is. If it comes out of left field. So the other thing that both Molly McPherson and a conversation with Shanti Zimmerman helped me realize is if you're a genuinely good person, and here's the thing, I don't know that assholes are worried about this. I think it's the genuinely good people, the genuinely kind-hearted, caring. I don't mean religiously moral, but I mean having just a basics of do no harm and ethics. People, you are so going to be okay no matter what. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean you won't misstep. It doesn't mean you won't put your foot in your mouth or share your heart and show your work in a way that, you didn't have the intention of causing harm, but it did. We're just in this world where we're still learning. But what I know about myself at the end of the day, and that was the question, Shanti was like, this wasn't something shared on social media, but it was in another relationship. And she was like, did you do anything wrong? I said, nothing that I can see. And if there's something that this other person had a problem with me, they didn't tell me. And so how could I know? And so at the end of the day, I was able to let that other person have their experience, and I was able to have mine, knowing that I was in integrity. And so if I wake up and be in integrity, even if I end up making a decision or sharing something or saying something off that does end up causing harm, does end up heading in the direction of a mini media crisis, I trust myself to make things right. So we can't be afraid that, oh my God, I might put something out wrong. You might, and you might not, and somebody might still be an asshole, but either way, you can hold like, okay, my best intentions are to make this right. My best intentions are to learn. My best intentions are to make repair. And so that was another thing I got from Molly McPherson's book, Indestructible, is, a lot of the people that screw up their PR stuff when there is a problem are assholes. They just are. And it's so funny because I work with a lot of really kind, good-hearted, almost over-functioning, kind, good-hearted people. And it doesn't compute with us. Like it doesn't compute because we would never behave that way. So I just want to remind you, number one, you're a really good person. And you're out there when you're sharing your heart and showing your work and offering your services and creating in the world out there. What really matters is that you don't reject you. And I mean that from a loving kindness place, not an ego place. And if we stay open-minded and open-hearted to our own work and to our audience, sometimes people are going to get in and they're going to be buttholes. block and delete. I shared something about my heart attack on TikTok. It went the most viral of anything I've ever done. And people were literally telling me that I didn't have a heart attack. And at the time, especially right after the heart attack, when I was very sensitive, I didn't want to hear it. And I don't owe any of those people my platform. Block, delete, block, delete. I don't owe them my argument. I don't owe them any of that. But the other thing Molly McPherson talks about is your shareholders or your stakeholders, your people. If your people come to you and say, "Ooh, Allison, yikes, that one hit a little hard," right? Don't surround yourself with like, "Oh, everything's wonderful. Allison's wonderful." Surround yourself with people that will tell you the truth, right? And if the majority of your shareholders are like, people who you actually do care about you don't just care, you value their opinion, right? Like, whose opinion do you value and whose opinion are you like, yeah, so, right? So I just wanted to share that fun little resource with you for visibility. Create your zombie apocalypse plan, which is have a standard operating procedure for when things don't go well. It doesn't mean that you'll need it, but if you ever do, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm allowed an internal response. Then I can work with my team to figure out the best course of an action for an external response. But I don't have to engage in the assholery of cancel culture or people being jerks to each other on social media. So just a little quickie for you all. See you soon. Peace out.